Because we know that about 12% of America's schools produce 50% of America's dropouts, we're going to focus on helping states and school districts turn around their 5,000 lowest performing schools in the next 5 years. And Arnie will be amplifying and providing details on how we can do this. We'll not only challenge states to identify high schools with graduation rates below 60%, we're going to invest another $900 million in strategies to get those graduation rates up. Strategies like transforming schools from top to bottom by bringing in a new principal and training teachers to use more effective techniques in the classroom. Strategies like closing a school for a time and reopening it under new management, or even shutting it down entirely and sending its students to a better school. And strategies like replacing a school's principal and at least half of its staff. Now, replacing school staff should only be done as a last resort. The public servants who work in America's schools, whether they're principals or teachers or counselors or coaches, work long and hard on behalf of our children, and they deserve our gratitude. Keep in mind, I've got a sister who's a teacher. My mother spent time teaching. One of the most important jobs that we have in this country. We've got an obligation as a country to give them the support they need, because when principals and teachers succeed, then our children succeed. So if a school's struggling, we have to work with the principal and the teachers to find a solution. We've got to give them a chance to make meaningful improvements. But if a school continues to fail its students year after year after year, if it doesn't show any sign of improvement, then there's got to be a sense of accountability. And that's what happened in Rhode Island last week at a chronically troubled school when just 7% of 11th graders passed state math tests. 7%. When a school board wasn't able to deliver change by other means, they voted to lay off the faculty and the staff. And as my Education Secretary Arnie Duncan says, our kids get only one chance at an education, and we need to get it right. Of course, getting it right requires more than just transforming our lowest performing schools. It requires giving students who are behind in school a chance to catch up and a path to a diploma. It requires focusing on students from middle school through high school who face factors at home, in the neighborhood, or in school that put them at risk of dropping out. And it requires replicating innovative ideas that make class feel engaging and relevant, because most high school dropouts in a recent study said the reason they dropped out was that they weren't interested in class and they weren't motivated to do their work. So that's why we'll build on the efforts of places like communities and schools that make sure kids who are at risk of dropping out have one-on-one support. That's why we'll follow the example of places like the Met Center in Rhode Island that give students that individual attention while also preparing them through real-world, hands-on training, the possibility of succeeding in a career. And that's why we'll invest in accelerated instruction in reading and math to help students who've fallen behind make up credits and ultimately graduate on time. It's also why we'll foster better alternative high schools and transfer schools, where students who have dropped out and who are at risk of dropping out can return to the classroom and earn their diploma. That's how we can curb dropout rates and boost graduating rates. Now, I have to point out, in the 21st century, high schools shouldn't just make sure students graduate. They should make sure students graduate ready for college, ready for a career, and ready for life. And that's why we'll foster what are called early college high schools that allow students to earn a high school diploma and an associate's degree or college credit at the same time. We want to learn from successful charter schools where students can take advanced and college-level courses. So government has a responsibility here. Government can help educate students to succeed in college and a career. Government can help provide the resources to engage dropouts and those at risk of dropping out. And when necessary, government has to be critically involved in turning around lowest performing schools. And nobody's been more passionate about this than Arnie Duncan. But as I've said before, education is not and cannot be the task of government alone. It's going to take nonprofits and businesses doing their part through alliances like America's Promise. It will take parents getting involved in their children's education consistently, going to parent-teachers conferences, helping their children with their homework. I have to point out, I just went to my daughter's parent-teachers conference last week. She's doing very well, by the way. It will take students as well showing up to school on time and paying attention to classes and staying out of trouble. They're not let off the hook. Education isn't a passive activity, it's an active one. So educating America's sons and daughters is a task for all Americans. And that's what this alliance, that's what this effort is all about. Making sure that none of us think that it's somebody else's job, but rather we all accept our role to play in making sure that we have the best educated citizenry in the world. That's what has made the 20th century the American century. That's what will make the 21st century the American century. Now, there's an old story that Colin has told about a man named George Ellis, who lived about 100 years ago. And George Ellis was a janitor. His job was to clean up after the artist Daniel Chester French. Some of you may have heard of French. He's the one who carved the figure of Abraham Lincoln for the Lincoln Memorial. So day after day, week after week, month after month, Ellis went about his job, barely uttering a word to Mr. French other than say the occasional hello or goodbye. And then one day, just when French had nearly completed his masterpiece, Ellis spoke up. He said, "Mr. French, I have a question for you." So the artist said, "What is it?" "Well, what I want to ask is how you knew all along that Mr. Lincoln was sitting inside that block of marble." And as Colin pointed out, that wasn't a silly question. Because sometimes in this country and in our lives, we see blocks of marble, and some people can see what's inside and some people can't. It was a question profound. It was a profound question about how we recognize the potential within each of us and chisel away at what's keeping it locked inside. I'm absolutely confident that because of the work of Colin and Alma Powell, because of the work that Grad Nation campaign is going to be doing and America's Promise Alliance is going to be doing, because of the work that we're doing across this nation to give our children the best education the world has to offer from cradle to classroom, from college through career, that we are chiseling away at the obstacles that lie in our path, that block our children's potential. We want to unlock that potential, carve it out, so that our economy succeeds, so that this country succeeds, and so that our children and grandchildren succeed. So thank you very much for the extraordinary work you're doing. Thank you all for your participation. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America.